I'm excited to be here with our special guest. We have Reno Mayor Hillary Sheevey, Sparks Mayor Ed Lawson, and Fernley Mayor Roy Edgington Jr. I know that our members are just as excited to talk with them too. We have some questions that were submitted today prior to this event, so I would like the panel to answer these first. But let me do a little bit of a brief introduction of our mayors, please. Mayor Hillary Sheevey was born and raised in Reno, Nevada. She attended Reno High School and was elected Reno's mayor in 2014. My, how time flies. As the 28th mayor of the city of Reno. Prior to being elected mayor, Hillary was elected as at-large Reno City Council member in 2012. Mayor Sheevey brings to the council her entrepreneurial experience as an employer and local business owner, as well as her out-of-the-box thinking, which helped her businesses prosper during the economic downturn. She wants to use her business knowledge to help eliminate bureaucratic red tape and spur job creation. Mayor Sheevey's other key issues are economic growth, public safety, regional cooperation, and senior services. One of her major issues is the reformation and revitalization of downtown. She has made it a priority since assuming office to put funding towards creating a downtown environment that attracts residents, students, businesses, and visitors. She was named Politico Magazine's one of America's 11 most interesting mayors article. Peace refers to her as the reinventor for her role in the positive transformation of Reno, which is becoming a hub for tech entrepreneurs and companies, polling coders and data analysts from far more expensive Silicon Valley 4 hours to the west. Welcome, Mayor Sheevey. Mayor Ed Lawson was officially sworn in as the 26th mayor of Sparks on September 14, 2020. He was elected to the Sparks City Council in November of 2010, re-elected in 2014 and 18, and elected mayor pro tem in November of 2018. Mayor Lawson was born in Sunnyside, Washington, and grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. He attended Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. Mayor Lawson was the vice president of business development for Sierra Builders of Nevada and worked with Young Electric Sign Company, Yesco, for 15 years, holding positions in sales and management, and served on the organization's Government Relations Committee. He is active in the Sparks Rotary Club, which is where I know him best, and volunteers time to the community. He's a champion of economic development. Mayor Lawson also plays a significant leadership role with the annual Kids Free Fishing Day, which attracts more than 3,000 kids to the Sparks Marina. And that is quite an event for those of you who haven't had a chance to attend. In 2014, he was recognized as the Public Official of the Year by the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. Welcome, Mayor Lawson. Mayor Roy Edgington Jr., his bio is just a little bit shorter. He was first elected to the Fernley City Council Ward 3 seat on November 2010 and elected as Fernley's fourth mayor in 2014. Mayor Edgington is a native Nevadan and has lived in Fernley since 1988. Roy served in the United States Air Force as a firefighter and retired from the fire service after 27 years of experience. He is instructed at the University of Nevada, Reno, Dodd Beals Fire Training Academy. Welcome, Mayor Edgington. These questions were submitted in advance to the mayors, and I'm going to start in reverse order. And as we introduced Mayor Edgington last, let's begin with him and say, what do you see as the biggest issues facing your city at this time?
Finances, our tax, the way it's structured and what have you. I think our budget is our biggest problem for us. We managed to do pretty good because we don't get a lot of C-tax. But on the other hand, because we don't get a lot of C-tax, we don't have our own police department, fire department. So there are trade-offs for that. We managed to do fairly well through the recession and started to pick up. And again, with COVID, we got shut back down and it was almost like a recession. But I think our finances are our biggest problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Lawson, what do you see as your biggest issue or issues?
Well, there's probably a long laundry list of them, but I would agree with Roy. Property tax is number one. You know, the house that I live in today is worth $500,000. 10 years ago, it was worth $98,000. Obviously, taxes are not rising at a pace quick enough to keep up with the price of that home. The other thing that we're experiencing is we're running out of land over here in Washoe County, and the fact that we are out of buildable land at this point. And in about 5 to 10 years, we will have to start more infill, which creates more expensive housing. And like I've always said, is, you know, this BLM land that's around us might as well be ocean, and we might as well be San Francisco. We can't build on it. We can't expand. And the way our tax system works, those things are, we're required to grow exponentially. If you look at the Las Vegas model, for example, you know, from when I grew up there and left in 1978 with around 300,000 people, came back in 1985 to 650,000, and now it's over a couple of million, and, you know, still going strong as they continue to build. But they've been able to expand. We're in a situation where we can't expand in northern Nevada, and this is going to ultimately be our downfall. And so you'll hear me say this forever and ever: is the land spill is so important. If we don't get the land spill, be prepared for more expensive housing, and it's going to be that simple.
Could you expand a little bit on the land spill?
The land spills there's a fancy name for it, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but in essence, it's Washoe County, Sparks, and Reno together. But we've identified, particularly for Sparks, is the land east of us that goes over to Story County. We've identified about 40,000 acres there where we want to move our industrial center and then put housing down by the river. So, you know, take back our river in essence. Every city in America would love to have a river run through it. We have a river run through Sparks, and it's backed up with tilt-up concrete buildings. So that's the plan in the future, is a city center basically in the river district down there. But the big part of the plan to start with is to grow to the east, put that industrial up to the east, closer to Story County, where the employment center is. You know, there'll be 50,000 employees out there in a very short order, and most of those employees live with us. So we propose a road from La Posada to USA Parkway that will help take some of the stress off of I-80, and then also give access to those smaller companies. And we're going to go down where Story County is 500 acres and above. We'll go down to as small as 5-acre parcels. So if you're manufacturing one widget for Tesla and you don't need a ginormous facility, we'll make that available for you so that your company can still manufacture and supply to the big guys out in Story County.
Thanks, Mayor Lawson. Appreciate the answer. And land is always an issue. Mayor Sheevy, how about the city of Reno? What's going on?
Well, thanks so much. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy meeting with the realtors. I hope next time we can certainly do this in person. I also want to personally thank Jim Nadeau. You have a great advocate in him. He stays on top of the issues, and he also communicates really well with us. So no, he's doing a great job. But I would say certainly for me, well, finances in every city, okay? Every American city, you're always going to hear that. And that's always a challenge, because I kind of believe that the more money government has, the more they spend. So that's just sort of the nature of what happens there. But for me, at the city of Reno, it's housing and homelessness. The hard part, and any of you that have grown up here, I'd love to see a show of hands. You know, I was born and raised here, and we are no longer a small city. We have now approached the medium-sized city. So as we grow, obviously these challenges get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, housing is clearly an issue, and our homeless population is growing exponentially. And we're seeing that in every American city. And so really the city of Reno is super focused on understanding, you know, how we can help, you know, this population, but also at the same time, we have got to put parameters in place, one of the things that Ed sort of mentioned, and it's been a big priority for me, is we've got to take back our river so that you can come and show your clients a beautiful scenery when they come downtown Reno, but also be able to enjoy it. There's a lot of residents that haven't been able to enjoy it for a long time because a lot of people are sleeping along the river, and we have to remember that's our drinking water. And it's also incredibly dangerous for people to be sleeping along the river. So the new CARES campus that we are all doing together with Washoe County and Sparks is going to be fantastic, because we need transitional housing and services in order to be able to serve that population. And many of you probably don't know, the shelter was built as a temporary shelter in the city of Reno. So, and also this is probably the first time, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed it, when you come downtown, you are really seeing a lot of homelessness downtown. But I would say, this is the first time that we're really seeing our partners all come together. I think the problem is so large that you can't have one jurisdiction, one entity doing all the heavy lifting. It's become, that dire of an issue. So all of us doing it together, and I think it's the first time we're seeing it. You got to remember, the city of Reno is not social services. The money does not come into the city of Reno. We, Mayor Cashel was passionate about the homeless. That's why he built the shelter. So anyway, obviously that has been really, really top of mind. So we're really focused on that, because I think first impressions really count for our visitors and also for the people that live here. And the vibrancy of downtown Reno, there's massive, massive amounts of investment coming into downtown Reno. I don't think you will even recognize it in a couple of years, to be honest with you, with Jacobs Entertainment coming in. Look at what's happening with Harrah's. Now that'll be housing. You'll have Plimpton hotels right along the river. So much is happening downtown. It's just that this last year with COVID was incredibly challenging for people to obviously build projects. There was so much uncertainty. And we saw the same thing in the housing market. I know you guys have very, very little inventory, and that's certainly frustrating. I think for me with housing, it takes housing of all types. I don't believe in just building one type of, product where, a lot of people, I'm sure Mayor Ed Lawson hears this a lot. People always say, oh, you've got to build affordable, affordable, affordable. Well, you really have to build housing of all types, whether that's luxury, market rate, affordable, workforce. I think that's really, really critical. And I would also say this, now more than ever, and I'm sure as you guys know, we're having so many people move here from California. They're selling, a 1,200 square foot home in California for over $1 million, coming to Reno, buying something for 4 or 5, 600,000, putting the rest in the bank. Reno's looking incredibly attractive to people that are coming here from California. And so we've got to keep our eye on continuing to build, quite honestly. But, we're really seeing sort of these voices now that are saying, hey, we don't want sprawl, but we also don't want infill development. You're seeing some big, big projects come on our agendas recently. I've even seen letters from some of you, whether that's the Lake Ridge project, or we just approved the Canyons project out in Damani. And as you guys know, property owners have rights. And so I don't think they understand really the role of the council, because a lot of times they come to us and say, deny this project. That's really not what our role is. Our role is to make projects work and to, build, projects that are great for our residents. And so it's becoming really challenging. I've never seen it before where people are saying, we don't want infill, we don't want infill. And I would say, quite honestly, there's a lot of infill in the city that we can build upon and should build upon, quite honestly. And everyone knows infill is much more affordable to build, but there's also challenges. We've had challenges certainly with the workforce here, right? In the recession, many workers left. A lot of people in construction left. And so we've had a shortage of that. And then we've also seen where the prices of lumber are exorbitant, right? So there's all these sort of layers that are going on top of the complexities of continuing to put product in the market. But I'm a big believer you put in all types. I think that's, economics 101. And can you imagine if we just built a city of all affordable housing? That I just don't believe that's the best way to do it. But anyway, just to sum it up and make it pretty short, housing and homeless for me are the top priorities, and to take our river back. And oh, by the way, with the river, I'm really excited, just so everyone knows, kind of what's happened down there, because I'm sure you've read a little bit about it. These large camps come in and they also dig out the flood walls. And that is incredibly dangerous on so many levels. Certainly, if we have a fire or a flood, we could lose a lot of people that are living along the river. And I've always said that is not a place for people to live, period. And I don't want to see that. So the city of Reno and the other jurisdictions, especially for the city of Reno, what I'm going to implement, regardless if we have support from the other jurisdictions, but is 24/7 river rangers. Because right now what we're seeing is we're doing these large cleanups. They've cost $250,000 just for one cleanup. You clean it up and 2 weeks later, it comes right back. And I think if you really think about it, you could hire 8 people, 6 to 8 people for that cost to get river rangers down there 24/7 that are making sure that people are actually not camping along the river, but also people are enjoying the river and being able to recreate. I mean, how many of you guys, when you were younger, went fishing along that river? And so for me, that's going to be a big piece of economic development for me. So recreation can thrive down there and people can enjoy it without, having hesitancy, because many people go down there and have a very, very bad experience. And it's an asset that we're so fortunate to have, that we have got to keep it in tip-top shape.
Thank you, Mayor Sheevy. Back to Mayor Roy Edgington. How is your city, this would be Fernley, sustaining itself through the fiscal impacts of COVID-19?
For us, we were pretty fortunate. We closed City Hall for a while. We remodeled. We managed to use the money that was given to us to do that remodel, so that we're a little bit more user friendly and we protect staff and protect the public. We did some projects around there. It was challenging because we were closed for a while, but today we're back and open. While it was challenging, it didn't really cripple us per se, I don't think. I can remember listening to Las Vegas talk about their problems when they report to the state legislature, and their problem was they can't grow. They're landlocked, and so they used all of their money to keep the city going. We used most of ours for remodel. We used some for businesses. We gave out about 400,000, and then we gave out another 300,000 to social services for rent and utility assistance. So we backed up the Boys and Girls Club. So we have a training or a learning center. One of the things that we had was, with schools on and off, they go one day and then off another. The Boys and Girls Club stepped up and rented a building, and we helped finance that so that the kids would have a place and get some consistency and some help to doing our homework. By and large, we did all right, I think.
Thank you, Mayor Edgington. Off to you, Mayor Lawson. Fiscal impacts of COVID-19.
It started off extremely scary until we got that COVID relief program. And, since we didn't know what was going on in the beginning, we were having to isolate our firemen and policemen, for a couple of weeks at a time. So because they were infected or exposed on the job, we paid the overtime for that. So a large portion of the $19 million that we got from the federal government, or from the state, I guess, through the federal government, about 9 million of it went to overtime and those offsetting those costs for that. If we would have had to absorb that as the city, that represents about 12 to 14% of our general fund budget. It would have been devastating for us. So we got pretty lucky in that aspect. Well, we were also able to take that money, about $5 million of it, and put that towards the Nevada Cares campus for the homeless campus that we're building that I think Hillary and I agree 100%. Homelessness is a huge issue. I've sat on the Community Homeless Advisory Board for the last, well, I guess nearly 3 years now. We've come a long ways in this whole thing, from people being siloed and doing their own thing to now we're bringing everybody into the same tent, and we're going to be able to accomplish things together. Instead of trying to always put a round peg in a round hole, we'll have multiple pegs for multiple ways to cure this problem. So that's a huge deal. And then we were able to give about $4.5 million to residents and businesses for rental assistance. And so we're pretty proud of that fact. And then we gave some money to the food bank, but we were pretty generous with where we spent our money, but mostly it was on the overtime part for our front line people. You know, you get exposed and you got to sit around for 2 weeks. Well, you know, we didn't know about testing in the beginning part of this, so that was pretty scary for us, and folks had to work a lot of overtime. But I think in the end of it, we came out pretty good. I think we're in good shape for 21. We'll have to see, you know, what shapes up as we go through fiscal year 21, which starts here July 1, how we shape up for fiscal year 22. But right now, I think we're in pretty good shape for at least the next year and a half. But in city government, they're literally on a day-to-day basis, because one crisis can change the way you work. Because we don't have margins to speak of. I mean, our ending fund balance for us, which is money we keep in the bank, is roughly $4.5 million. $4.5 million doesn't make payroll for a payroll period. So it's a little scary at times, but the good news is I think we got great people. One of the things that came out of this whole thing, though, is we were seriously considering building a new city hall. And one of the things that, you know, and because I came on the council in 2010, you know, as the Great Recession was kind of bottoming out through that 2010 to 2014 area, we laid off roughly 40% of our staff. So when we started back, I said, you know what, let's think about this a different way. Let's see what we can do with technology, and the technology taking the place of hiring people back. Well, that set us up pretty well for this. Now we've hired only about half of that 40% of people back, but we were prepared technologically so that when the Zoom came along, we were able to shift gears very quickly. And what that's kind of led to is us thinking that, you know what, we may not have to spend $150 million to build a new city hall, that we can work this out in having people a hybrid system where you work from home, from Zoom, and from the office down at City Hall. So it's working out well for us. We're going through the scenarios now, and I'm pretty proud of that fact that, you know, that's a lot of money to come up with, and not having to be forced into it is kind of a pleasure.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson. Mayor Sheevy, impacts of COVID-19.
Wow. Yesterday, I just did a news piece about sort of reflecting on this last year, and it just has been something that, you know, you just can't even fathom that you're dealing with or going through. I think cities now realize, now more than ever, our public health infrastructure has really suffered, not enough investment in public health infrastructure. One of the things I pointed out is, you know, we're so used to working with disasters, whether it's, you know, flooding or fires or things like that. And we're working with our experts, which is our public safety personnel. Never have I had to reach out to, you know, doctors, epidemiologists, scientists. And so, you know, it was really interesting to watch how, you know, things had to change so quickly on so many fronts. And so we were really, really fortunate to get that money. Honestly, that really, really saved us, because, again, going back to homelessness, we were seeing it grow by leaps and bounds. And a lot of that had to do with whether they lost their jobs or they were already sort of on the brink. And it was just that sort of tipping point. And then we saw a lot of drug relapse. A lot of people in the pandemic that had been sober for a very long time, had struggled with anxiety, depression. There's a big mental health component of what's really going on here. We talked about COVID, like this first wave and second wave. And I've said, I think the tidal wave, honestly, from COVID is going to be the mental health impacts. We took a lot of that money, and obviously the CARES campus was really, really critical because of, the homeless situation and helping our small businesses. We did several $1 million in small business grants. Remember, our small business owners are the largest job creators in the country. And really, so many of them had struggled. We thought that was really critical. We provided, iPads for our school districts so that, these kids can learn from home. But you have to remember, too, we also learned not everyone has connectivity. And that's another thing, is that our technology infrastructure, in every city, I think, the pandemic really made us realize that we also have to invest in that, and how certain populations and areas of our city don't even have connectivity. And so can you imagine, in this pandemic, there were a lot of kids that fell behind in certain areas of our city because they didn't even have the internet. And so I think it's a very stark reminder that we've got to continue to invest in our infrastructure. And so with that COVID relief money, we did give a lot of money to the food bank. Rental assistance was a big one. We still have money available for rental assistance. If any of you, have landlords that, have not, because of the moratorium, that have not received rental income. So, we put a big set aside for that because we've seen a big need. And also we know it really makes sense to keep people in their homes. Otherwise, it costs the taxpayers that much more money. But I also did a big set aside for mental health initiatives. One of the things I did, and it was controversial, and I'm not going to apologize for it, because I think if it saves one person's life, and I've received several letters from people, is that I made sure that the city of Reno had talk space available to anyone who wants it. So I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but you might have seen the commercials with Demi Lovato and then the Olympic swimmer who use it. And what it is, it's a therapy app. And we have like the full spectrum of that. It's not just a minor subscription. We have a major subscription because we were seeing people suffer with anxiety and depression. And also a lot of people stopped, seeing therapists. And also we are last in the nation for mental health. And if you don't have a healthy city, people are not going to want to live here if you don't have services like that. And we've seen now more than ever, whenever our police officers have to respond to mental health issues, and we've got to stop using our jails and our ERs to treat mental health. We have to get our head around this. And that also kind of goes hand in hand with our homeless population, because just giving someone a roof over their head does not mean that they will be able to understand or what it's like, how to actually live. I hope that makes sense for people. And so I kind of think we've been putting the cart before the horse when we keep talking about, housing first, housing first, housing first. We have to really look at it holistically. But anyway, I would say if anyone, Talkspace is great because you can do it, right there on your phone. And the younger generation really loves it because they're used to obviously technology. They also have it. You can do it on the phone or Zoom or text. Whatever you're comfortable with. The younger generation does really, really well with it because obviously they were born with an iPhone in their hand, I think. But we are seeing very high rates of suicide with our younger populations. We had, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was on the phone with Kristen McNeil from the school district, and in 1 week we had 5 children commit suicide. And so we have got to remember that mental health is got to be a priority in our city. So I've done a big set aside for a 24/7 crisis center. And we've got a lot of great therapists and physicians and psychiatrists and psychologists coming to the table to be one entity. So let's say our police interact with someone having a mental health crisis. Instead of taking them to the jail or to the ER. They could take them to a 24/7 crisis center, and then we can get them assistance in some of our mental health hospitals, and also have caseworkers that follow up. And so there's a model, it's called crisisnow.org. It's out of Arizona. I went with the state. Matter of fact, Governor Sisolak has given me a building on the NAMS campus for this crisis center. And I think it's long overdue. It's really, really needed. But if you want to check it out, it's crisisnow.org. And it's a phenomenal, phenomenal model. And it saves millions and millions and millions of dollars. Because as we know, it's very expensive to put people in jails. But it's also certainly not the way to deal with mental health crises clearly at all.
Mayor Sheevy, you touched on some issues that are in the chat line as questions, and one of the big ones was mental health. And there's a little bit of history. Most towns years ago had a building. There was that building in the community where the mentally ill were housed, where they were treated and everything else. And that was funded by the federal government, if my memory serves me well. You also mentioned that we have to stop treating mental illness at the emergency room and at the prisons. My college roommate was director of the Nevada State Prison for 6 years, and he said that they have basically become the treatment facility for mental health issues in the state. So they would get them into the prison, get them on their medication, get them into a regimen, and they would be successful. They would be paroled, they'd go back out in the street and fall back into their old habits. So when you talk about recidivism and going back into issues, I think being proactive on this is very important. And we credit you for taking that issue on and dealing with it, and also City of Sparks. So I'm going to modify some of the questions a little bit and bring in some of the audience questions at the same time. So Mayor Ed, you mentioned developing along the river into taking your industrial area and making it a residential area and moving some of the industry out to the east. That area floods a lot. What would you do as a flood mitigation, or what would your plan be if you're going to build residences in that area, how are you going to mitigate the flooding?
Well, we do have a flood board that actually Mayor Hillary and I both sat on. I think we're very close to making something happen for that. We have about $40 million in cash, and we have we think around 50 to plus million that we can bond. So we can come up with $100 million to basically get the flood project done, which mitigates the 100-year flood pretty well. Now, of course, when you put houses down there, we're going to have to accommodate for that. So we believe that, you're going to have a podium style housing where parking on the bottom and housing above, which would mitigate the issue with flooding. But I think the bigger part of that is, with the flood project itself, that's very exciting things that go along with that. Is part of that area in between Rock Boulevard and McCarran. They want to meander the river a little bit more so that it can be a spawning ground for the Lahontan cutthroat trout. Now, what a cool thing to have, in an urbanized city, that you're basically created a habitat for a prehistoric fish. That it's a unique situation for us, and this fish, is in this 120-mile long river that starts at Lake Tahoe and finishes at Pyramid. So I think there's some really cool things down there. I think that'll be the attractor also for the homes, and the ability then to be able to live, work, and play in the same area. With the going up on the hill, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. We've spent about $300,000 in some planning, some high level planning right now. We've budgeted another $300,000 for next fiscal year, and we're going to get down a little bit closer. But at the end of the day, we're looking at it like our downtown Victorian Square. We'll have 5,000 people living in a 6 square block area there. We think we can get 25,000 plus people in the industrial area that would live in that area right now, where there's less than 100 people that live. So that's a huge part for Sparks to grow. And that would be infill type growth, which is good. It won't be inexpensive housing, as the mayor said. You want to live along the river, you're going to pay a premium for that. But the good news is that frees up housing for other people that down the socioeconomic spectrum. So we think that's the way to do it. And we also have the Audi corridor, where we're putting in a complete street. RTC starts on that, where it's sidewalk, bike path, and then travel lane for cars, and it's all separated. So it makes it extremely safe. That will go from Pyramid along Audi Boulevard all the way to Wells. And then we've identified 15th Street from the bus station up right next to Sparks High School to connect that all together. So we're going to connect our city centers together and put the high density housing in those areas, and then, obviously be less and less dense as you move away from the city center. It's a European model. It's been used for thousands of years. It works. I don't know why we've not done this in the past, but I think, in the West, we've always had the ability, is like, don't fence me in kind of an attitude. We're not the same city we were 20 years ago. And this, as the whole region has changed. So we have a plan for the future. And I think the vision for Sparks is to make those city centers high density, utilize public transportation. And then the road I talked about, we also did a carbon footprint study on the road from La Posada out to USA Parkway. If we get just 10,000 cars on that a day, we save 25 tons a day in carbon emissions. So we think that's an environmentally sound reason to put a road in, not to mention that it cuts the commute in half, and it also gives another way to get off of I-80. Many of the frequent accidents that happen out there, and stop up traffic, as we saw even just yesterday morning. So it happens continually.
Some great answers. Thank you both very much. Back to Fernley, Roy. Interstate 80 has proven to be one of those things that, when we talk about affordability and housing, and as we look at the statistics, Fernley is still much more affordable as a place to live than Reno or Sparks. And with that has come the industrial development, both at Tahoe Reno Industrial Center and now moving out into the area in Fernley that is being developed. What has that done to your housing? And I know that you had some issues on water out there, maybe a water lawsuit. Can you bring us a little bit up to speed on that, and what you're seeing from, are you able to still build, and are you moving forward with some plans for accommodating all the people that want to live in Fernley now?
As you know, we get 6 inches of rain. It's the high desert, so water is always going to be an issue in Nevada. We had X amount of farms. We traded our agricultural for residential and industrial. We still have some water, yes. We still have some growth that we'll be able to handle. Right now, the city is trying to focus that growth into areas, especially in infield, because obviously it's easier to connect sewer water and stuff when you have the pipes there. I don't see it as a problem for us. We are looking at other sources of water. The Bureau of Reclamation, after the flood 10, 12 years ago, did a study, and they want to line a canal. Well, the canal recharges our water system. And so we're for the fact that we feel that while they acknowledged it's an issue, they refuse to address it. And so that's what that lawsuit's about. Where that will go, again, like I said, that's attorneys and stuff. And probably I'll be long gone before that gets settled. That'll be a thing that'll go through the federal laws program. As far as building, we're excited. We're especially watching the rail bill that's coming up on inland ports. We've got NNDA and come and talk to us. They've got a couple of people that want to actually build an inland port. Oakland, the city, the Oakland port wants that here. It's a good location. We believe we can support that. We still have a lot of homes on the books that need to be built, and we're starting to see some of the apartments. We just got a unit where it's almost 200 units are going in. They've been on the books for about 3.5 years. So we're going to see those. They're doing the earthwork now, and they should be done in the next 6 to 7 months. So we're looking forward to building. Really exciting, I think, for us. We're looking for that. We're serviced by 2 rail companies. You got I-80, you got I-50, you got 95 South. The airport's just down the street, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Again, great answers. So I'm going to swing back to Mayor Hillary, and you mentioned infill development. You mentioned putting some housing where there isn't as much housing now. And so as all the mayors are aware, as soon as a project comes before the planning commission and then before the city council and everything else, everyone's saying, okay, that sounds like a great idea, but not in my backyard. And I noticed I got a chuckle out of all of them. Anyway, the one I want to focus on, because I think it's just one of the best examples of it, is the Lake Ridge development. We had a developer come in and buy the Lake Ridge Tennis Club, and then there's a request to develop the driving range at the Lake Ridge Golf Course and change the zoning there that would enable the golf course to become single-family housing. Now, I'm going to say not my golf course, okay? But what are the thoughts and what are the arguments that are going up against this type of development?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Gary. Let me just kind of give a little bit of background. Those are 2, and I want everyone to understand this, because in my inbox, I'm seeing a lot of, a lot of chatter in my inbox. These are 2 separate projects. So Lake Ridge, the Lake Ridge Tennis Club, and then the one you're referring to is the Toll Brothers project. Those are 2 different projects and developers. So I think I'm seeing a lot of people confused about that. So I want to really, they're 2 very different projects for sure. I live very close to these projects, and I am very, well, let me just say, let's start with the first project. That would be the Lake Ridge Tennis Club project. For me personally, I am very concerned about the traffic, because that area, honestly, when we had the Collin Ranch fire, was incredibly congested. And the city has not, I don't think they've done sufficient studies on traffic mitigation right there. And if all of you guys know, you're coming down McCarran like at 50 miles an hour, then you hit that stretch and it's almost like this little residential street that goes down to, I don't know, it might go down to 25, 35 right there in that little small stretch. And so, we'll see, because the developer had to go back and, bring in a significantly different project on that one. This second one, and the Planning Commission just heard it, was, denied. And I would say this, for me, this is incredibly challenging to see a project like this, especially when, it's zoned open space and they want to rezone. That for me is a big problem. And I think, for Lake Ridge, I was born and raised here, and that there's a lot of significance in that area, and that's a beautiful course, beautiful driving range. I think a lot of people live there for those types of amenities, and so I have a really tough time looking at a project like that and saying, "Yeah, let's bulldoze that." For me, it's going to be very, very tough to get there. I don't know if at all, but I got to tell you, it's. I think they're going to appeal it and they're going to come right back. But those are 2 totally different projects and 2 different reasons for complete denials on those. So I just want everyone to keep it in mind that those are different developers and different projects. But I mean, when I heard about, taking out the driving range, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. And so it was really, really disappointing. So we'll see what happens, but they did get a complete denial at the Planning Commission. And so that should say something. I think just because you can doesn't mean you should. But again, they're, requesting, zoning. I think open space is really important. That's one of the reasons why people do love Nevada, because we have, incredible beauty here. And so to me, that it doesn't make any sense. That one just to me doesn't make any sense. The other thing that I'm really aware of is, and that's not the issue over here, but I think people should understand this is, some of the flood areas that we've seen where development happens. I think that is incredibly challenging too. I mean, honestly, my record, I'm a believer in building. I think it's important. Why do you think people are coming here? It's the same reason, a lot of those people came from California and then they're saying, oh my gosh, don't approve certain projects. And, they came here for a great quality of life. But again, like you said, not my backyard. And so that, can be pretty frustrating. And again, there are property rights that people have. And especially if you buy land, they want to develop them. We have a project coming down by the hub too. I've had a lot of people call me about that project, right?
Tree.
Right. And we will save the trees. But I also think, it depends on what they come in with, right? What does that look like? For me, I want a project, especially there, that has, some historical significance and also it conforms with the neighborhood. I think that's always a very, very bad idea when you have, this incredibly modern structure in, historic district that doesn't even fit in, right? And so I think that's where the council can actually modify projects to make them conform with the area and also add to the amenities that are happening there. I mean, a lot of people did not, just so everyone knows, they did not want the Hub coffee there. They did not want businesses there. And now people love it. And they, they all congregate at Hub. What about the Eddy? The Eddy was very, very controversial. And I don't know if some of you, have young kids in their 20s, but the Eddy is super popular and it was a very controversial project. And look at it, it's right along the river. It's always packed. It's, a great amenity to downtown. And then the other thing is, I'm a big believer that private and public partnerships work. That's why I did the initiative of 1,000 homes in 120 days. And, we beat our goal and unfortunately COVID hit. So a lot of development had to stop. But I believe in smart development. And so that's why, that Lake Ridge project for me is absolutely, to me, I looked at it and I just shook my head. So.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to transition now. I think that everyone here today has been able to attest to the passion that all of these leaders bring to their jobs. We may not always agree, but we always are open to conversation. And our conversation from the Realtors Association, both locally and on the statewide, comes through a company called Career Nevada. They are our team lobbyist, and our government affairs director is Jim Nadeau. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Jim for just a few minutes. Jim?
Thanks, President Gary. I really I appreciate that. I just wanted to make some real quick comments. I've been fortunate to work with every one of these mayors. They're friends of realtors. They work hard on our behalf, and they listen when we talk to them. As you mentioned, we don't always agree, but the reality is they are friends of realtors, and they've been good folks to work with. So thanks for the shout out, Mayor. I appreciate that. But really, I enjoy working with all of them, and they're all excellent. So thanks, Gary.
Okay, so we're coming to the end. I'm going to, and I know this may be the toughest thing for all of you to do. I'm going to give you each 30 seconds to wrap it up. What would you like to say as we leave? Ed Lawson.
Well, number one, I'm glad that you guys had us on today. This is always good to be able to talk to as many groups as possible and share the vision that we have for Sparks in the region. I think we're in a time right now that I couldn't be more proud of the way that the three entities are getting along. Myself and Mayor Sheevy and Bob Lucy and all the, we're just getting along. The spirit of cooperation and moving our region forward. I think we all have the same vision, is to make things work and be the best for wherever you live. If you live in Sparks or if you live in Reno, that you have the same quality of life.
Mayor Edgington, your turn.
Today, I appreciate it. I know Mayor Hillary and Mayor Lawson, I've had many long conversations with them. I think that the one thing I enjoy is that when I got into politics 10 years ago, there were these lines. This is my jurisdiction. This is my jurisdiction. And you go out there and you look in the dirt, there's no lines. And we all have the same problems. And I think what I've seen in the last 10, 15 years is that every jurisdiction, regardless where they're at, county, state, has started to talk to each other and open up doors and realize that we're all into this together. Mayor Hillary's got some great ideas. I love the mental health. We've talked about trying to do that with our next COVID money. Ed, same thing. What happens upstream affects us downstream. We all, like I said, it doesn't matter where the business locates. We get employees. 60% of my workforce leaves Fernley. So if I can get a business here and I keep a few, but still most of them are going to go work elsewhere. And Ed loses some of his employees, to us, as does Reno or any place else. So we share everything. Like I said, I look forward to working in the next couple of years with everybody. And I think we're going to see some good growth. I'm hoping, like Mayor Hillary said, control, not necessarily control, but at least smart growth. Pay attention to what we're doing. The city of Fernley has done some really good planning, strategic planning in the last 5 years. When I got here 10 years ago, the second in command of the city, I asked him what was our problem. He looked at me and he said, we've been a city for 10 years and didn't even have a clue what a city does. So our new city manager has changed that. And I think the council has changed that. We have good long-term plans, and I think we're in a good position. And I think working with our regional partners, whether it's NNDA, GoEd, EDON, Sparks, it doesn't matter. The realtors, we depend on you. You need to tell us what's going on. I see our realtors all the time and talk to them. I know housing's an issue, so we need to work on that.
Thank you, Mayor Roy. Mayor Sheevy.
All right, thank you. First of all, I want to say I love my realtors. You guys are some of my biggest champions because you sell Reno. That's what you guys do. That's what I do. And so we want to build a great, vibrant city that your clients want to buy in and people want to live, my constituents want to live in this community together. Reno is super fortunate because we do rally. We are still small enough in that, that small town mentality that I love and I never want to change. Because we have a great community. I want to say thank you to the mayors that I get to work with. I'm super fortunate. My colleagues have been fantastic. Like Ed said, I don't think we've ever gotten along better in the region, which is only going to help all of us thrive. And as we say as mayors, there's no Democratic or Republican way to clean a street. And really it's very true. I just want to talk a little bit about, it's called Hopefulcities.org. And it is what I put together with a local woman here, and we worked with Harvard. She worked with Harvard on the study of hope, and it's called Hopefulcities.org, and we hope to pilot it in other cities. And if you want to sign up for Talkspace for free, Talkspace is about $400 a month, and this is free for a year if you are a Reno resident. And I would really encourage anyone that is experiencing anxiety or depression or even loneliness. I mean, many people experience that during this pandemic. Taking for granted just being able to go hang out with friends and have a beer, things like that, or family members that we didn't get to see. And so many hardships that happened for so many of us over the last year. it definitely would take a toll on your mental health. So I want you to go to hopefulcities.org. It's on the study of hope. It's right here from Reno, Nevada. I've taken it to the Conference of Mayors. Many cities are going to adopt it. And it's a pretty large mental health initiative, because I think, Gary, you really touched on it, that, you know, many decades ago, the federal government, you know, actually under the Reagan era, you know, stopped funding mental health. And you know, I hate to call them institutions, but they did have those, and those went away. And when that happened, this is what the aftermath of what you're seeing today, when you see the effects of mental illness on our streets. And we've got to start treating mental illness just like any health crisis. Mental illness is a health crisis. And so we really have to pay attention to that. You know, if you think about it, there's a man lying on the ground and he's screaming in pain, and, you know, he's got a ruptured appendix. What do? We take him to the ER, we get him surgery, good to go. The same man is lying on the ground suffering from schizophrenia, you know, dual personality disorder, whatever that looks like. Do you know what we do? We let him sit there. We have no services for people like that. That's what we do. We let them stay there. And so we've got to realize this is a pretty massive problem. And that's why you are seeing so much homelessness and relapse and addiction and things that are going to be the biggest challenges that we see out of cities. So I would just say, go to hopefulcities.org. Look into Talkspace. That's how you can access it. And then also there's great workbooks on the study of hope for K through 6th grade. And those workbooks are all free. This initiative is all free. So I just want everyone to take advantage of Talkspace for the year while we have it. We currently have about 2,000 people signed up. I just received a letter yesterday from a young man saying that it literally saved his life. He felt very suicidal. And so if we can save, you know, one child or one senior, seniors have very high rates of suicide as well. Then, you know, we're doing a much better job in our city. Like I said, we're last in the nation on mental health, and it just shouldn't be like that. So I just want to say thank you to my realtors, because you guys are the biggest champions for Reno. You know, you sell us, you love this community, keep what you're doing. And I'll continue to keep trying to put more product in the market so you have something to sell, because I feel really bad for many of you right now, because I just have seen what a challenge it is. And you know, it's something to certainly watch, because what does this look like in a year and a half or 2 years, right? We've all seen bubbles like this. What goes up must come down, right?
Careful of bubble. We don't like that word.
Right. Right.
It's an uptick. Right? It's an uptick. Mayor Hillary Sheevy, Mayor Ed Lawson, Mayor Roy Edgington, Neil Kurtz, we didn't get to you today, but thank you all for being here. We're going to go on to our general meeting, and we're going to thank you for coming prepared, knowing the topics, and really giving us some great insight. I don't know why anyone wants to be in politics today, but we thank you for serving, and we thank you for your relationship with our associations. Thank you.